In the climactic confrontation between Zeus and Superman, Zeus of the DC universe, with his limitless power spanning across endless dimensions, his strength is beyond all limits, making it difficult for Superman to resist. Under the brilliant sky of Mount Olympus, where white clouds float like endless silk ribbons, Zeus stands tall on the golden throne. His eyes flash with lightning, as if each ray of light is a declaration of war against the entire universe. His hair is white as snow, fluttering in the divine wind, and his cloak glitters like the Milky Way hugs his muscular body. Today, it is not a god or monster who dares to challenge him, but a person from a distant world, a man called Man of Steel, Superman. Rumors of Superman have spread to Olympus through the whispers of the wind spirits. They tell of a man in a red cape, flying through the sky at the speed of light, his eyes shooting out heat rays that can burn down entire mountains. Zeus, in his supreme godly pride, could not bear to be compared to a mortal, no matter how powerful. He gripped his glittering scepter, where lightning bolts swirled as if to tear the air apart, and declared, "I will test this one. If he dares to stand before me, he will know the power of the heavens." On the other side of the universe, in Metropolis, Superman stood atop a skyscraper, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. The golden sunlight shone on his deep blue armor, making him look like an immortal symbol of hope. But today, he felt a sense of unease. An ancient energy, so powerful that it shook the air, was calling his name. "Zeus," he whispered, his voice low but determined. He knew that this battle was not just a test of strength, but also a confrontation between the will of a god and the courage of a hero. The space between Olympus and Earth suddenly shattered as Zeus descended upon Metropolis. The modern city, with its gleaming glass buildings and bustling crowds, seemed to hold its breath at the appearance of the god. A sudden lightning storm swept across the sky. The sky darkened, and the thunder rumbled like the roar of a giant beast. Zeus stood in the middle of the central square, the scepter in his hand emitting a blinding light, challenging all eyes. "Superman!" he roared, his voice shaking the earth. "Come forth, and prove yourself worthy of your name." Superman appeared, streaking through the sky like an arrow of light. He landed before Zeus, his deep blue eyes staring fearlessly at the god. "I do not seek war, Zeus," he said, his voice calm but powerful. "But if you wish to test me, I will not back down." The surrounding crowd backed away, feeling the terrifying pressure from the two opposing entities. The air was heavy, as if the universe were holding its breath, waiting for the moment of explosion. Zeus smiled, but it was as cold as the ice on Mount Olympus. "You dare face me, mortal?" he asked, raising his scepter. A giant bolt of lightning tore through the sky, hurtling towards Superman. But the Man of Steel was unfazed. He raised his hand, stopping the bolt with pure force, causing the light to explode around him like a supernova. The crowd roared in surprise, and Zeus narrowed his eyes, sensing for the first time that he had a worthy opponent. Zeus, with the power of a skyfather, summons a fierce storm of lightning, each strike seemingly tearing apart reality. Huge bolts of lightning, glowing like fiery dragons, hurtle towards Superman, but he moves faster than light, dodging each blow with incredible precision. He returns the blow with powerful punches, each blow shaking the space, creating shockwaves that shatter the surrounding buildings. Zeus does not rely solely on physical strength. He uses his divine power to warp reality, to create illusions that confuse Superman. For a moment, Superman finds himself trapped in a space labyrinth, where volcanoes erupt and the sky is stained with blood. But his will, tempered by countless trials, shatters the illusion. He charges forward, eyes blazing with heat, aiming straight at Zeus. The god blocks with his scepter, creating an explosion of light that blinds the entire city. Amid the dust and lightning, Zeus realized that Superman was not only a mighty warrior, but also a symbol of resilience. But he did not flinch. "You are strong, but you are not a god," Zeus roared, summoning a cosmic storm where meteors crashed down as if to crush the earth. Superman, with all his strength, flew up, intercepting each meteor, protecting the city from destruction. The battle dragged on, shaking Metropolis. Superman, despite his extraordinary strength, began to feel tired. Zeus's attacks were not only physical but also contained divine power, weakening his will. Meanwhile, Zeus, despite his immortality, could not help but be surprised by Superman's endurance. "Who is he that can resist me for so long?" Zeus wondered, his eyes flashing with rare respect. But Zeus was not a god of mercy. He focused all his power, creating a giant lightning tornado, strong enough to tear apart the entire dimension. Superman, with a steadfast heart, rushed straight into the eye of the storm, determined to use all his strength to confront it. The two entities collided, creating a dazzling explosion of light, causing the whole world to stop for a moment. When the light dissipated, Superman knelt on one knee on the ground, breathing heavily. Zeus stood there, his staff still gleaming, but his eyes were no longer arrogant. "You fought like a god," Zeus said, his voice booming. "But I am the sky, the universe. You cannot surpass me." Superman raised his head, his eyes still blazing. "I do not fight to surpass you, Zeus. I fight to protect those I love." Metropolis, the once bright city, now had an eerie atmosphere. The cobblestone streets were crumbling under the force of the battle, the skyscrapers swaying like drunken giants. Dust still hung in the air, mingling with the dim light of dawn, creating a surreal picture. People, from small street corners to large squares, gathered in silence, their eyes on where Superman still stood, a sturdy figure amidst the rubble. Superman, though exhausted, still maintained his indomitable appearance. His deep blue armor was now covered in scratches, his tattered red cape fluttering in the wind. He knelt on one knee, his hands clenched on the ground, as if trying to absorb the power of the planet itself. His eyes, though tired, still burned with an indomitable fire. "I cannot fall," he told himself, the voice in his head echoing like an oath. "Not now, when they need me most." On Olympus, Zeus sat brooding on his throne. The scepter still glittered in his hand, but its light seemed to have dimmed, as if he himself had sensed the change in his heart. The battle with Superman was not just a test of strength, but a reminder. "He is no god," Zeus muttered, his gaze shifting to the distant clouds. "But he has something that even gods would respect: courage, sacrifice, and an unyielding will." At the foot of Olympus, the other gods were in an uproar. Athena, sharp-eyed and timeless, stepped up to Zeus. "You let him live," she said, her voice low but curious. "Why?" Zeus turned, his gaze as deep as the night sky. "Because he fought not for glory, but for the weak. He reminds me of why we were once worshipped by men." Meanwhile, in Metropolis, Lois Lane, her dark hair a mess and a camera slung over her shoulder, ran to Superman. "Clark," she called, her voice shaking with worry. She knelt down and placed her hands on his shoulders, her eyes filled with concern.
"Are you okay? You don't have to do this alone."
Superman smiled weakly, his hand clasping hers. "Lois, if you don't stand up, who will protect them?" She shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. "You're not just their hero, Clark. You're my hero." As dawn broke over Metropolis, a strange energy began to radiate, not from Zeus nor from Superman, but from a mysterious source deep within the cosmos. In the sky, streaks of green light sparkled, as if stars were falling, but they weren't meteors. They were fragments of reality, the result of a war that had fractured the space between dimensions. Superman sensed the change first. He stood up, his eyes focused on the sky, where the streaks of light were converging into a giant vortex. "This is not the end," he said, his voice low but determined. Lois gripped his hand, her gaze shifting from concern to determination. "Whatever it is, we will face it together," she said, her voice as sure as an oath. On Olympus, Zeus also noticed the anomaly. He stood up, his scepter flaring with lightning. "Who dares invade my kingdom?" he roared, his voice shaking the sacred mountain. Athena stepped forward, her spear gleaming. "Father, this is no ordinary foe. Your battle with the Man of Steel has awakened something older than ourselves." In the center of the vortex above Metropolis, an entity appeared. It had no shape, just a mass of brilliant light, but it exuded a power that made both Zeus and Superman shiver. The entity did not speak, but its whispers echoed in the minds of every living creature. "You have shaken the order of the universe," the voice said, cold and emotionless. "Now, you will face the consequence."
"You think the power of the gods can touch me?"
The entity sneered, its voice cutting into his mind like a knife. The battle broke out again, but this time, Superman and Zeus did not confront each other. They were forced to join forces. Superman charged forward, using his physical strength to shatter the fragments of reality, while Zeus used his divine power to stabilize the space around him. Each of the Keeper's attacks was so powerful that they both retreated, but they did not give up. He is stronger than anyone I have ever faced, Zeus admitted, his eyes shining with respect for Superman for the first time. In his moment of crisis, Superman remembered Lois's words, "You do not fight alone." He looked at Zeus, and for a rare moment, the two entities understood each other. "Together," Superman shouted. Zeus nodded, his scepter and steel fists joining together, creating an explosion of light that tore through space, pushing the Keeper back. Despite repelling the Keeper, space was still unstable. Fragments of reality began to collapse, threatening to swallow both Earth and Olympus. Superman, with a hero's intuition, realized that there was only one way to prevent the disaster. "I must close the portal," he said, his gaze fixed firmly on the center of the vortex. Zeus looked at him, feeling genuine respect for the first time. "You know what it will cost, don't you?" he asked. Superman smiled, a sad but meaningful smile. "If that's the price to save everyone, I'll pay it." He flew into the center of the vortex, using all his strength to pull the fragments of reality together, sealing the portal. Zeus, standing at a distance, watched as a brilliant light surrounded Superman. A final explosion rang out, and the vortex disappeared. When the dust cleared, Superman was no longer there. Metropolis returned to peace, but the hearts of those who witnessed it were heavy. Lois, standing in the middle of the square, clutched her tattered red cloak, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You did it, Clark," she whispered, "like always." In Metropolis, the people begin to rebuild the city. A statue of Superman stands in the central plaza, his red cape billowing in the wind, a reminder of his sacrifice. Lois, now with a new fire, continues to write about her hero, to keep his story alive. But in a small corner of the universe, a flash of blue light appears. Superman, though dead, seems not to have completely disappeared. A voice echoes, soft but determined. "I will always be here, when the world needs me." And somewhere, Zeus smiles, knowing that their battle has created an everlasting legend.